Welcome to today's webinar. We'll be talking about Power BI Embedded, what it is, what it looks like, what it can do. And we're doing this always with the focus on call center data. You don't need to be a call center agent or work in a call center to hopefully find this interesting. We'll really mix up a bit of both. So Power BI Embedded in general, a bit of the technical things, a bit of licensing, costs, that sort of topics, but then also really just covering the specific use case of the issues and problems that people or call centers might have. Before we dive in, just a quick look at the agenda. So I'll be explaining a bit who I am. Rakesh will explain a little bit who he is. Then Rakesh will be sort of building the story, explaining to you guys what the problem is that these call centers might have and how it can be solved with data using Power BI and then specifically Power BI Embedded, while I'll be covering the embedded part. Rakesh will also not only tell you what he's about to show you, he's really going to demo what this looks like in Power BI Desktop. I'm giving you a few tips and tricks, and then he will hand over to me and I'll explain the basics of Power BI Embedded, what is needed from a capacity point of view, what that means in terms of pricing and that sort of thing. But then I will also go into a demo part where I will really take the same report that Rakesh presented before, and I will show how it can look like in a Power BI embedded solution, how we can add new users and yes, that sort of thing. And then we should have enough time for Q&A, hopefully in the end. So a little bit about myself. My name is Pascal. I'm based in Switzerland. I've been working with data and BI for, well, quite some time. And I'm the co-founder of Embedsy. And I'm very lucky that I put Vlad on the picture as well, because he is in the webinar today. So it's the two of us that have founded the company that we will talk about today. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn or also send an email with any follow-up questions that you might have. The company Embedsy itself is really focusing on developing embedded analytics solutions, and our main solution is the Embedsy portal. The Embedsy portal is an out-of-the-box plug-and-play embedded solution that customers can easily deploy in their Azure environment, connect to their Power BI, and then have their completely branded online web portal where they can show their Power BI reports to internal users if they want, but also easily to external users, partners, clients, without the need of buying Power BI Pro licenses for every user. Our vision is really to make embedded analytics easy, accessible, without any technical knowledge, because you will see today that embedded requires quite deep knowledge of software development. Yes. And what we are really doing, when I say the Embedsy portal is an out-of-the-box portal, that's correct. But what we are really strong at is with custom development, because we are fully aware that every customer has some specific requirements, and we're always happy to hear them, so we can enhance the portal with not only Power BI topics and solutions, but also any other thing that you can think of that a web portal can do. Good, but that's it about me. Let's hear from Rakesh, please.
Awesome. Thank you, Pascal. And thank you to everyone who's joined us from all over the world. Great to co-host with you. So just a little bit about myself. I've spent over like 2 decades in an industry. And when you work in a certain industry, you start to see like what's working, what's not working, what's probably missing. So I've been in contact centers, and one of the biggest challenges I see is a lack of data. Isn't a lack of data, but more a lack of clarity around the data. So just again, hi everyone, I'm Rakesh Sookay, founder of 𝗞𝗲𝘆 here in South Africa, for those who have just joined us. And yeah, so I think lots of you can attest to that, in not just in call centers, but in many industries. You see a lot of manual Excel reporting. So people are just compiling manual reports with lots of information, but there's no real clarity in the data or actual insights from it. Managers are struggling to find insights from the information that they hold. And I've also seen in my 2 odd decades of being in contact centers, the need for having automated real-time insights. And that is what has actually led me or inspired me to found 𝗞𝗲𝘆, which is a company that I run here in South Africa, and we service clients both locally as well as internationally. So yeah, just a little bit about 𝗞𝗲𝘆. So 𝗞𝗲𝘆 is basically a data and analytics consultancy, and we just partner with our clients to help them see what's working in their data, what's actually not working in the data, and where they can improve in the data. Because as I've mentioned earlier, most companies, they don't really have a data problem. They just have a problem interpreting the data. And that's what we come along, partner with them, and help them to get the insights and value that they need, they're looking to derive. Yeah, so by the end of the session, my goal for you is to see how an analytics dashboard or call center dashboard, in this case that I'm using, can transform call center operations. So in a call center environment, just with being there, and I think this is applicable to many other industries as well, there's 3 aspects that we generally dive into. Call centers are the heart of every customer service organization. But without clear insights, you get inefficiencies creeping in. Customer satisfaction starts to take a dip, and that impacts the bottom line. It either pushes up costs, or where you should be turning conversions or sales, you could be missing out or leaving money on the table. So what we look at is in the dashboard that we've developed, we look at the operational efficiencies of the contact center, as well as the experience that the customer is having when dealing with an organization, and what are the costs or the revenues that affect a contact center. And some of the things that most contact centers they will monitor the service levels, the total volume of calls that are coming through, and what are the costs of those calls, or to provide the service. So basically, a well-managed call center means happier customers, better efficiency, and increased revenue. And what I want to do now is I want to dive into the actual dashboard. So this is I've used simulated data here due to client privacy. I'm just going to close it off. So it's just simulated data, but the gist or the idea of what the dashboard is able to do versus using an Excel manual report that is compiled daily or weekly by managers, you see the impact of it. So in this dashboard, I just want to quickly show you. So we've got different I'm going to say users who can log into the dashboard. So even though it's a Power BI raw file, a CEO would use this dashboard, and he'd be able to see all the information on it. And if I just show you that, I just want to grab the email address there. Yeah, just go. So yeah, there we go. Welcome, Rakesh. So just got a little bit of a personal touch to it, but if a manager logs in, so I just want to grab a manager's email here and show you that. So it's going to do the exact same thing there. Okay, great. So we will use Abby, who's a manager at a call center. And on the very first page, so Abby logs in and she can see her entire team, which is her team's made 28,000 calls. What is the percentage of her, or the service level agreement percentage of the call? From the operational point of view, that is. From a cost point of view, she can see, okay, her call charges are $80 per call. You've got different slices in here. So she has the ability to quickly slice through the information and look at the data at the different years and give her the costs. Red means the costs are increasing or service levels are down. So we're using the IBCS version of reporting here, which is Zebra BI visuals on this one. And she can also see, is there agent burnout happening? She's got 514 calls on average that go to her team or her agents. And she has a total of 14 agents. So this kind of information coming out of an Excel spreadsheet is very limited, and as well as not as dynamic as it appears on the dashboard. And also being able to create the row level security, it's a lot more difficult having Excel spreadsheets. Somebody's going to cut and paste and send Abby her version versus manager B, manager C would get their version. So here we can see that it's fully dynamic, and she has the ability to track on a daily basis her team. She's looking at, when are the peaks periods of her calls coming throughout the day. And this is the AM shift, and that's the PM shift. There's more calls coming through in the AM shift. So yeah, I'm just going to stop viewing Abby so we see the full data. Okay, so that's the full data. There's 32,000 calls. So Abby, and this is 131,000 calls for the full period. Okay, so let's just go to employees. So in the employee section as well, this is the full version without any row level security. So you can see Rakesh is like a senior manager, and he can see all his managers with their staff billing. So Abby reports into Rakesh, and these 𝗞𝘆, Junie, Beulah all report into Abby. I'm just going to use this, and we have the same happening here for 𝘠𝘪𝘀 and 𝘪𝐿𝐶. So it just it's very easy to for me as a senior executive coming in to have a look and see what's happening at the various levels or within my team. We'll just go back to Abby. So if Abby logs in, okay, so Abby just sees her team. So she sees who's her direct line manager, and she can just see only her team of individuals, where they're located. So they're at the Jacksonville site. What's the number of calls per call type? So you've got the tech department, the billing department, and the sales department. And what are the charges, the call charges at the various sites, or site as well as the various departments. Okay. And then just want to go into the last page here. Okay, this is quite an interesting page. And this page here we use to manage customer experience. In a call center, you have abandoned calls, and any contact center, when you have abandoned calls, it affects either sales because you're losing customers, or the customer experience. Customers are coming in, they're either waiting too long in the call, and they end up dropping because they're not being adhered to. That affects your service levels. Here, Abby can see exactly which calls were lost when, in which month. So in here, she can see the calls per month. She can see the calls per shift. So more calls lose in the AM shift or the PM shift, and the total calls per hour for the day, or these are the operational hours of the contact center from 1 a.m. till 7 p.m. in the evening. And another feature here I want to show you is, so you could have this as a live dashboard, your data feeding in and going through to the various managers or even the agents. And if I just want to use an example of an agent here, so just bear with me. Yeah. Agent. So let's just see if this agent. Okay, great. So I'm viewing Brittany's drop calls, and this entire dashboard is now only showing Brittany's information. So you can see Brittany can see that her line manager is Abby, and Abby reports into Rakesh. And the same for the executive dashboard, it'll only show Brittany's information or calls that, yeah, everything that relates to her. So at that level, we go back to her abandoned calls, and let's just say her manager expects her to take the information from here and make a call to a customer. So she could very easily come in here. I'm just gonna start, and this is a feature from Pascal's team called the Bridger visual, and it's an excellent feature for the call center. So Brittany would come and say, okay, she had 7 drop calls in that month, and she wants to call one of the customers. Let's just see, she can see which number she wants to call. There's 7 numbers here, and she decides she wants to call this particular number here. She clicks here, and this should connect us to whatever telephony system you have hooked up to it. I'm just going to open. Okay, there we go. And it opens up on Skype here, and I can click call. And immediately, I'm just going to terminate that. We don't want to, it is random numbers, but yeah, it could just be a real number, and we can actually end up dialing somebody in South Africa. So that's a great feature if you want to improve your customer service. Having this kind of information at the agent, where the at the agent level, where instead of loading the information into your dialer, that the agent has it live on them and can immediately say, hey, there's a customer who came in, the call dropped, let's get in touch with this customer and try and either retain the customer or see what the call was about, why they dropped. So yeah, I think that's in essence what I want to share, the power of having automated real-time analytics and what it can do for your call center in regards to your operational effectiveness, as well as your, I'm just going to stop sharing that dashboard there. Your operational effectiveness, as well as managing costs, as well as improving customer service from those 3 angles when you're looking or managing a contact center. Great, and thank you all. Over to you, Pascal.
So now we know a bit what kind of data we're dealing with, what the report looks like, the different roles that have been set up with the manager role and the call center agent role and the CEO role and all that. So up until now, let's just say this was pure Power BI as we know it. Data from whatever source loaded through Power Query, transformed, put into the semantic model, and then visualized in Power BI. But now we want to look at how this report, or well, basically any report, could be added or shown into a Power BI embedded solution. So I'll start a bit with the basics of what Power BI embedded is. And so when I wrote this sentence, I actually struggled a bit because it's not easy to find just one sentence that doesn't use any technical terms and is understandable and really sort of summarizes what Power BI embedded is. I've done sort of I've done like a user group, a Fabric user group, where there was all Power BI professionals in the room, and I was explaining what Power BI Embedded is, and because everybody has heard of it, but nobody has really worked with it, the understanding of what it is or what it might be was very, very different, even for the Power BI professionals. So in one sentence, we can really say that Power BI Embedded is used to embed Power BI, that I wouldn't just say reports, I would actually say Power BI content, because it could also be a Power BI dashboard or just a visual or paginated report. So it's Power BI content into applications. And now what's the word application? Well, with normal Power BI, we consume reports in the Power BI service in the browser. So on app.powerbi.com, that's where people look at the reports, or on their mobile phone with the Power BI app. But embedded can be included into any kind of application. So this can be a web application. Technically, it could be a mobile application. It can also just be a website. So really think, when I say application, the word application, as a piece of software, be it online or on-prem, any kind of tool, any kind of app, any kind of software. And I'll show you later on a specific use case, but before I show you one possible app, I want to show a little bit of more about the basics. And the people here that have worked with Power BI before, they might have seen those three screens before. So on the left-hand side, we have the settings of a regular Power BI workspace. And you can see that I highlighted the different capacities. So what's important to know is that Power BI Embedded works on any kind of capacity. It works on an embedded capacity. It works on a paid fabric capacity. It also works on a free fabric trial. The only thing which I haven't highlighted is a premium capacity, because premium capacities will turn into fabric. So premium will disappear quite soon here anyway, but technically today it also works on a premium capacity. And this means that users accessing these reports, they don't need to have a Power BI Pro license assigned. So we are paying for the capacity. We're paying to Microsoft for the capacity. So even with a small Fabric F2 capacity, which is relatively cheap, Power BI Embedded works perfectly fine. So that's one thing we need to do in the service to make sure Embedded works. Then once we have that workspace configured correctly, we need to add a technical user, a service principal, with a minimum the member role to that workspace. Because technically, there's only this one user that will access the Power BI service. Even though in my embedded solution, in my embedded app, there might be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of users, there's one technical user that has access to the workspace, and it's not like every user out there needs to be added to the workspace. And then there's also a couple of Fabric or Power BI admin settings that need to be activated. Today we're talking about the embed for your customer method, so the app owns data. There's technically two different ways of embedding. We're focusing on the embed for your customer, and that's not enabled by default, but Fabric admin can enable the couple of settings that are needed. And then from a technical point of view, there's nothing blocking you for embedding. But still, okay, so now we have changed those settings. How does it work? So this is really the how does Power BI Embedded work. And even after this slide, which contains a lot of details, there will still be questions. But let me try to walk you through a little bit what this all means. So this part here, which is really, in our case, Rakesh, who's creating the report with Power BI Desktop, with data coming from any kind of source is exactly the same as with regular Power BI. Even the definition of row level security roles is exactly the same, no changes at all. Rakesh also still publishes the report to the Power BI service and to a workspace that must have the settings I just shown here. It must be assigned to capacity, service principal must have access to it. So this part here, until the report is published to service, exactly the same. So let's look at the right-hand side of that slide a little bit more, because here is where we have the custom app. Again, that application I mentioned before. So what is really that application? That application is what I have tried to show over here. So this can be what a Power BI embedded solution looks like. So we show some Power BI content, but everything around this part of it has nothing to do with Power BI. This is pure web development. So this is really the application that shows a bit of Power BI inside of it. And the way it works is that we use the Power BI REST API. So everything is nicely documented by Microsoft. So we use the Power BI REST API that has access to that specific workspace. That's what I showed before, the service principal that must be a member. And with this setup, and of course, there's a lot of security that needs to be implemented, but everything is fully secure with Microsoft Entra logins if wanted, if needed, and access tokens and so on. Very technical. I'm not going to go into details, but it's fully secured. And then what the Power BI service returns is, for example, a report. And then this report is shown inside of the embedded application, again, whatever it is. But still, maybe this answers a few questions, but how does it really then look like? So how is this created? How do we still get this report from the Power BI service and show it outside in a third-party tool or app? To visualize this a little bit better, I thought let's look at the Power BI playground, the Power BI embedded playground. This is something developed by Microsoft, and it's very useful to learn how to create embedded solutions. And it's also good for cases like that when it needs to be explained. So I want to embed one of my own reports, and because I'm logged in, the Power BI playground actually has access to my workspaces. So let me just pick a workspace and let me pick a report and embed that report into the playground. And if we think back about the app, this here would be our app. And that part up here is the JavaScript code that is loading the report via the Power BI API. And actually, there's a lot of hidden sections in here, so this code is quite long. I'm not going to go into details. We did a webinar maybe a month ago where we talked more about the code and the technical specifications. But this code here is part of the app, authenticates via the Power BI API, and gets back this report, which we can then add into the app. And I'll just change one small thing just to maybe give an even better understanding of how this works. You can see that currently we have the regular filter pane shown. And let's just assume that in my app, I don't want this to be shown. So somewhere in the JavaScript code, I have these settings, panes, filters, visible true. And when I change this to false and run the code, this filter here should disappear. So there is yeah, the filter disappeared. There's tons of different API calls we can make to really have the possibility to customize our app and how the Power BI content is presented inside this app. So I could now spend hours talking about all this, but let's try to get away from the technical stuff and go more into the user story again. Because what I want to show you is how this call center report that we saw before could actually be visualized inside a Power BI embedded solution. And to do this, I'm going to switch over to this here. So this is basically the Embedsy portal, and I've installed the brand new version only for today, and we can already see the difference in the URL. So we're not logging into app.powerbi.com, we're logging into our own custom domain, so call center or whatever .embedsy.io. So this could really be your domain where people, customers, partners log in. I'm not saying that this image here looks nice, but it should just show that this is completely customizable, and I tried to get Rakesh's logo and our logo and the webinar in here so people see that this is really made for today. And now I want to log in. So I'm, in this case, somebody working in the IT or the BI department. So I have an admin role. And when I log in here, and because this is a brand new portal, I didn't add anything but this call center report. Technically, of course, it could contain a lot more reports. That's basically what we can see. And because I'm an admin, I have quite a few options over here that a regular user will not see. So if you look at what I can see here, you will see that others will not see all of those. And this is, again, part of the application. So this is complete custom web development from scratch, more or less. And a lot of what we're doing here also has absolutely nothing to do with Power BI. So there's a lot of API calls we need to do with Power BI, but a lot of the logic in here is really developed inside the app and could look entirely completely different if you look at the app or a solution from somebody else. But still, I want to show a few things. So we currently only have those 4 roles. I created a role for BI dashboards. And what I can do is I can actually say view as somebody with that role. So now I'm pretending, sort of what Rakesh did in Power BI Desktop, pretending to be somebody else to see what the access they have. I'm now pretending to have this role. And because I'm now logged in with that role, I can see that this is now differently branded. And I have more options here in my navigation menu. I have a couple of hyperlinks in here. I have a call manual in here. I even have a paginated report in here where the call center agents should not have access to. And then I have the same report that we saw before. Let me just wait until this has loaded. The same report we saw before. So if I click here, this should look quite similar, where because I'm Rakesh in this case, we should see all 64 agents again. But what we're trying to do now is we try to give access to every single call center agent while making sure they only see their data. So first of all, I would go back into the user config and I would go into roles and I would add a new role. And let's call it call center agent. Also, the agents should not be able to export reports to PDF. So I just don't activate this. But what they should see is they should see Power BI reports. So now I get a drop down of my workspaces, and that again is the workspaces where this technical user has access to. Doesn't have to be one, could be many, but in my case, I decided to only give access to this one workspace called Webinar Call Center. So that's the one we see here. And it also only contains one report. And now here it's asking me for row level role. And this you remember from before. Rakesh created two different roles, one for CEO and one called hierarchy security, which is the one that is really, we're not going into details, filtering down by the email of the person who is logged in. So if I say they should only have access to this, I activate preview pages. So I added this new role and they have access to one report. And let's also give them access to the call manual, which is an iframe. So again, this has nothing to do with Power BI at all. And we could add more functionality. So really, this is just a demo that should inspire and really show what can be done. So I've added this role, but now I also need to give access to people so they can actually use this role. So what I would do is I go back to the report in Power BI desktop, and let's just find an email address. So there's a person working in the company that's called 𝗤𝘗𝘁, and she is a call center agent. So definitely she should not have the CEO role, but only that newly created role. So I'll copy this email. And I go back to the portal and I go to users and I say add user, paste her email, and she will get this newly created role, call center agent, and save. So me as the IT person, I'm now done. I would do the same thing for all the other users. We could even bulk upload, but let me just show how this works with one user. So I'm done, and I would tell 𝗤𝘗𝘁, hey, your account has been set up, or you have been given access. Please go to the portal and create an account, because I haven't set a password for her. That's her job to do. So I'll just create an account, and to make it easy, I use everywhere the same thing. So this creates an account for her, and from now on, she can log in. And note that I didn't assign her to the workspace. I didn't assign her a Power BI Pro license. Technically, Power BI doesn't really know that this person exists. The app is making sure that the correct API calls are triggered to receive only the data according to the row level security that we have implemented. So when I now go into executive summary, we should only see one agent because I'm one person, right? So now everything is just filtered down to this one person. Even her name is shown here. And this should basically show that even with embedded, we can use static row level security for the ones that know that there are different ways of RLS, static. But what we are using here is dynamic row level security. So we can have one role and assign many people to it. So if I did the same thing with another user, let's use Karen as well. And I'm logged in as the admin again, so I have more buttons there. I can say create a new user, and she also has the call center agent role, save. We can also check if they can really not export, because remember, I'm an admin, I can export. And let me now log in or create a user for Karen. So paste everything in here. Account has been created. Good. I log in. So now I also see just one person, but just a different one. I'm now Karen, which means I can only see, I think on this page we see that I can only see Karen. And I also don't have the export functionality here. One thing about embedded that I want to mention is pricing and licensing and so on, because right now, what we are using in here is, I need to log in with my admin again to see all the options. What we're using in here at the moment is a fabric trial, which means we don't need to worry about pricing because it's free. But sooner or later, all our fabric trials will expire, so we will need to switch to a paid capacity. And the nice thing about such portal is, and I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but we're doing this. I just want to demonstrate that. I'm now in the Azure portal. This is our fabric capacity, and it's currently paused. This is why I have the resume button. So now I just change the portal and say, oh, you know what? Let's use the paid capacity. So the portal now also sends an API call to Azure that starts the capacity. So see, now I have the pause button, which means the capacity has been started by the portal. What I would also have to do is I actually need to go into the workspace and say, now, don't use the trial anymore, but use the paid. Let's use our paid capacity here. So now everything is on our F2, which is the cheapest fabric capacity. Quite cheap. I'm not sure I remember the price exactly, but I think it's very cheap. And still, the reports work perfectly fine. And the nice thing is, again, because it's web development, the portal, well, it needs to be developed into the portal, but the portal knows if somebody is logged in. And as soon as I log out and nobody else is in the portal sends another request into Azure. Where did my Azure portal go? Here, and it will pause the capacity to make sure we're not wasting any money. This makes sense for companies that are on a pay-as-you-go. I don't know if you're aware, but basically for fabric capacities, there's two ways of commitment, let's say. There's the pay-as-you-go, which is more expensive per hour, but it can be paused. Or there is the reserved capacity, which just runs 24/7, but with a 41% discount or something. But what we have noticed is, especially with, well, it depends on the size of the company and how many users and if they are in different time zones. But in many cases, people they're not logged in and look at the report for hours and hours. And a lot of the time, especially at night and on weekends, nobody is using the analytics system. So the pay-as-you-go with an automatic pause and start can reduce costs of such an embedded solution quite a lot. So what I did also for everybody here in the webinar, if you want to click around in the portal yourself and see how it works and do a bit of navigation, you can log into or go to callcenter.embedsy.io, and then with the username and password, both webinar@embedsy.io, you can log in to the portal and have a bit of a click around just to see what it feels like, what it looks like. So this is what everybody should see: the report, the paginated report, the call manual, and then also two hyperlinks to the Embedsy and BI dashboards website. Rakesh, because I see there's a lot. Did you maybe take a look and can already tell me a bit what went on and what we need to answer?
Yeah, I think Flood answered the one, and then we've got a question from Satwik. Does the current version of Embedsy support export subscription for the users, especially for the paginated reports?
I'm not sure why the word subscription is in there, to be honest. Paginated report export report, yes.
Okay.
So
Great.
so paginated reports can be exported to PDF and Excel, and regular reports can be exported. Even more. So yes, it works. And the regular reports can be exported to PDF, PowerPoint, PNG. Basically, the same file types that you can use when you export from Power BI service. Yeah, not more and not less, I guess.
Great. There's another question here from Satwik. Where's the secret for the service principal saved? I'm not sure. Maybe where's the password for this service principal saved?
Yes. So that's a very specific question. So I will not answer it in detail because it could be anywhere. I know where ours is, but this is something that I don't want to discuss now. But there are, of course, more secure and less secure options when it comes to where this password or this key is saved. So please feel free to reach out to us directly to discuss a bit of our architecture, but it's really not part of this webinar.
Emmanuel has an interesting question. How does row-level security work in embedded?
I think the important thing is that the roles are set up exactly the same way for embedded than when you use regular Power BI. This is about security feature in Power BI embedded, and it describes row-level security. So if really somebody is interested in, this is the way to learn. Going through the Microsoft documentation and just making sure to use the correct API calls, because what needs to be in the API call, for example, in our case, let me just log in and log out again, is the name of the role. I defined the role, and it was the same role that we saw in Power BI desktop. So this hierarchy security. And because I added it into the portal, this is then taken and put into the right API call that's sent to Power BI, and then Power BI does the row level security.
Great. Hopefully that answers your question, Emmanuel. We don't have any other questions after that.
There is an interesting question I actually just see. Do app users need a Microsoft account, or is it available to any email? It is absolutely available to any email. So as you can see here on our login page, we only have email and password. This is also just for this demo case. Let me just find another one up here for a second. So technically, we can use just email password. Technically, we could have a portal that doesn't require any login. But of course, we can also use Entra login. So this is one of our other portals, portal.embedsy.io. And you can see that here, we also have the option to log in with Microsoft. Well, this user doesn't have a role assigned, but I can log in with my Microsoft user. I can use just email and password to log in. It's also possible to have any other, I think it's called social login, that you could use. So technically, you could log in with a Google account, with a GitHub account, with an Okta account. Power BI embedded doesn't really care. Power BI itself doesn't know how you logged in into the app. This is really managed only by the app itself. So answer is any email works if the portal is, of course, programmed and developed like this. Yes, that's the only question I just saw. There's more coming. Can I only allow Entra login for my portal? Yes, also. Really, it's up to the portal developer what they allow. We, for example, I could say, don't use, well, only allow Microsoft. not in this portal, it's not fully configured. I get an error, but that's fine. I could, in our case, say only Microsoft login, and then I can only use Microsoft login, or both, or three of whatever options we have. So yes.
Okay, we've got another question here from 𝘧𝗶𝘆. Can we show different sets of reports based on the user or an Embedsy user group? Sorry if I missed this. So if I
yes,
just
so
okay.
this is very specific to how we decided to do it. But yes, so we mainly work with roles, and then I assign roles or users to roles. So this is the role I created before. It's called call center agent. These people cannot export. They can also not refresh semantic model. What they can do is they can manage accounts. They see one report, one iframe, and currently 2 users are assigned to it, but I could also assign additional users. But this is how we decided to do it. Yeah, you can have as many roles as you want. Every role sees different reports, and then basically people are assigned to roles. Generally, because this is a web application, anything can be done. So we're also not limited to Power BI. Currently, the only BI tool we have embedded so far is Power BI, but we have in our backlog to also be able to embed other BI tools into the Embedsy portal and also add more functionality to it. We will officially close for today. We've reached this 60 minutes. We'll also send an email to everybody who has joined, and then feel free to reply with additional questions. Always happy to help. And of course, thanks for the people adding comments into the chat now. I'm happy that you have joined. I hope this was inspiring and you've learned a bit of new things. And we're already planning the next webinar. So yes, watch out for that. So with this being said, thank you very much. And
thank you, everyone.
Have a nice rest of the day. See you next time. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.